Hey, Kidmin leaders, welcome to our last installment of the Elephant Room Kid Ministry Edition. So far we have discussed the large picture of the new normal on our post-COVID-19 experience that we've all been going through the last 5 to 6 weeks. We've also discussed how we can keep emissions awareness to the forefront of all that we do. And we've also discussed how we can empower our parents and empower our leaders in helping us manage and shepherd this ministry and to disciple our kids for the next generation of Christ followers. But today we have an exciting treat. We have some highly influential and some highly capacity Kidmin leaders. We have a national representation, district representation, and local church kids pastors here to discuss the greatest elephant in the room. How in the world do we disciple our kids in a virtual environment? And how do we take this season to not just be a Band-Aid or a stopgap measure, but how do we move forward by the things that God has taught us through this, and to move forward to have this new normal not just be a cliche, but to be something where our kids are strengthened by the lessons that we've learned.
Hey, I'm Russell Smith. I am the Student Ministries Director and Children's Pastor at First Assembly of God in Griffin, Georgia. My wife and I, Misty, have been married for 22 years. We have an 18-year-old daughter who's a senior and graduating this year, Riley, and then our 15-year-old son, Drew. This July will be 26 years in full-time kids ministry. I'm also the VGMC Director for the Georgia District, and I'm just glad to be a part of what God's doing in the lives of kids and kid men during this time.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michelle Garland. I'm the Kids Director for the North Texas District. I'm married to my husband, Michael, for 16 years. We have 2 girls that are 11 and 13. Been in full-time kids and family ministry for about 19 years now. So glad to be here.
Hey, I'm David Richards. I am the Kids and Family Pastor at Christian Life Assembly in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. My wife and I have been married. We're getting ready to celebrate our 30th anniversary this summer. Which is exciting. So part of me is hoping this virus ends so I can whisk her away to a romantic anniversary. But I don't know if Disney's going to be open then. But that's an inside joke. But I have 3 incredible kids. I've got a son that is graduating this year as well. He's a senior. And I've got 2 daughters. One is a sophomore and the other cannot wait to become a freshman this next year. So been part of kids ministries all over the country, even served with our Oregon Ministry Network with children's and family there, as well as some great pastors' churches around the country. So excited. Thank you for the invite to be part of this. I'm looking forward to it today.
My name is John Hales. I'm the Children's Ministry Discipleship Coordinator with the Assemblies of God National Office. And I am not from around here. I was born and raised in England. Been in the States for 7 years. Also at this time working on a PhD in practical theology, which is kind of fun. And I just took over a small church as lead pastor. So it's going to be kind of a fun journey. Busy time.
That's awesome. All right, leaders, so let's just get into the big picture here. What are you noticing that is going on when it comes to discipling our kids since the virus has started, and what have you also noticed, you can add it kind of together as we move forward and we're kind of transitioning into back into the local church system that we're used to?
I think one of the first things that I've noticed is just that the church has tried to be the primary discipleship force for kids. And I think this whole challenge that we faced has really unveiled this fact of there's going to be times when we're not going to be able to be with kids. There's going to be times when we cannot be face to face with them. And with that, I think there's been a shift, certainly in my thinking, of the role of the family. It's something we've talked a lot about, the role of the family, but I think certainly in terms of discipleship, it's time that the church begins to realize its place and how we partner more effectively with parents. I don't know if anyone else has had those kind of similar thoughts.
I think one of the things that we hear the word discipleship, we have this formal idea of this, teaching that has to be done ABC order. What we're finding is for organic discipleship to take place, it's really coming a lot through conversation. David and I have actually had a lot of dialogue about this over the last 2 weeks. And it's just, through conversation with parents. In his book, Strong Enough to Last, David Boyd, there's a section in there. He talks about shepherding the heart of children. It's a part for parents. And, he talks about asking questions, but discussing the answers with your kids. And I think that more conversational, organic approach is really what I've seen where a lot of things probably need to head for parents because so many of them feel ill-equipped to disciple their kids. So I think that's one of the things that we've noticed.
Yeah, I have two thoughts. One, I'll go back to what John said. I think this season really has reinforced that the parents should be the lead discipler of their children. We've said that in kids ministry for decades, that we can't fix in an hour or two a week what's going on at home 7 days a week. And so this has just really reinforced the fact that parents should be discipling their kids. And so what are you doing to equip your parents, put tools in their hands so they can have those conversations and that dialogue at home? Because many of them up until this point probably weren't. So that's one thing. But then I love what Russell said too, because I really feel like this season, it's not about a program for discipleship. It's not about a built-in system. It's got to be organic and authentic. And I'm just connecting with you. We're all on a journey. And so we're just going to hang out on Zoom, and we may not even talk about the Bible, but we're going to build relationship, and I'm going to keep you engaged so that when our building does open back up, you have a desire to come and hang out with me and have that conversation. So when we do go back to that program, we're all able to move forward together. I think right now, if we get pigeonholed into thinking that it's about a program or specific structure, we're gonna find kids that are disengaging and parents that aren't encouraging that engagement as often.
And to kind of continue that thought, talking about relationships, especially, that's something that we've got to continue to do. I think we get into a kind of a complacent, robotic mode in our churches sometimes, and we just do the programming. But I come back to Larry Fowler wrote the book Spiritual Champions, and when that book came out, kids leaders all over the country were like, we got to get this into the hand of our pastor. We've got to help parents understand that they are the spiritual champions. But like Michelle said, we have families that were never in church. They never grew up around. And a lot of our parents, I shouldn't say in our church, but there's a lot of parents out there that want religion for their children because they have no concept. And here we as the church come along to say, hey, here's the resources that we can give you now. And they're finding them online. Whereas before, parents would not engage at the church because that's your responsibility, Pastor David. But now they're going, wow, what else do you have? What else do you have? And so, yes, those relationships, putting those parents and encouraging them to be those spiritual leaders, I think it's starting to happen. I had a parent recently say, thank you for this. We didn't really know what you were doing in kids' church before. And now we're watching with our children and we're having conversations. And of course, part of us are going, yeah, but at the same time, we're cheering because it's happening. And so it's got to be a continuation, but it is that relationship. It's that encouragement. It's that, let me assist you and then release you on this.
I love what you say in there, Dave, because I feel like it's been a catalyst in some ways for a lot of families. It's this forced change that actually could be really exciting. I think we could all view this as a negative time for discipleship, but actually it could be really, really good for the church long term. Especially as long as this goes on, churches are getting fatigued in producing a lot of content. And I think they're having to realize, whoa, it's time we just stop trying so hard and we leave a little bit more space for parents to act and be involved.
Say one of the things that we did, because we talk about program versus relationship, I think there is a way to mesh the two. We started probably a year and a half ago doing junior Bible quiz as one of our life groups. It's not even done on a Sunday in a Sunday school hour or whatever. And so those parents were getting together in a home or somewhere. And so it started conversation about those questions, and parents were learning things. And so one of the things that we've seen is taking JBQ, which is a program, but it gets that conversation. So our JBQ has continued throughout this process without, missing a beat, because these families are on a Zoom call just like this. They're, talking through the questions, even though they're not able to do a buzzer and those kinds of things. But it is that whole weaving God's word into conversation. That to me is the greatest discipleship that we can encourage.
I think for myself, all the administrative, meetings and calendar and everything else, they have a little bit of it. But I think just being able to cast the vision to our parents, to our kids, to our leaders, that it's about the relationship of the church and the relationship with Christ. That is the emphasis that I think that we need to. That always is our emphasis. We need to make that a priority. And I think sometimes we get preoccupied with other things. I don't know if you remember, Dr. Ron McManus, at one time, he made a comment. He said that if programming and management are in the front seat and your vision and relationships are in the back seat, you'll never make your destination. So vision and relationships need to be in the front, programming and management in the back. And when you do that, your organization, your ministry will grow. And I think that's one thing. Taking the 8 goals of the Assemblies of God, Kidmin, when we take those and we start to implement that. John knows this. Our church, our preschool ministry 9 months ago made the transition with our preschool to True Fire. And we looked at doing that for our elementary. We're going to wait till this fall. But when all this took place, we're like, nope, let's jump into it. So we made these things a priority, and I think by doing that, it's going to benefit. It's going to do something.
I think for us, one of the things that has been strong for us is being event-driven. It just seems like we would finish one thing and then have to go right to the next. And so having this time to really key in on that relationship and just, letting those parents talk, and not asking so much of people, but having them be available to talk and to ask questions, and do that with their kids present. We do every Tuesday night, we do a family Zoom, and we have families that are together. My wife and I are together, and we do that with those families. And so, in my hope and prayer is that maybe we can move from being so event-driven. To me, doing something like this is not an event. It is organic. And it is, I know we keep saying relationship, but that to me has, that's one of the strong points that I think has to become stronger, even stronger moving forward.
Yeah, I think at the beginning of all of this, and even if you back up before COVID-19, and I am 100% pro excellence, so don't misunderstand what I'm saying here. But, in the beginning of all of this, it was like, let's mass produce some high quality stuff to get it out there for our people, because they don't, a lot of our churches didn't have the tools to be able to do that on their own. So let's help put some stuff in their hands, get that out there, do it high level, high quality. And that's amazing. But what we've seen over time is that because it's not live, the engagement factor is not going up, it's actually going down. And so what I would say is one of the things that needs to continue to happen is those live things. For example, our church did our service live on Sunday, and it felt like we were more there versus watching a pre-produced video. And then we're seeing that in our kids ministries. Like if you can go live on Insta or Facebook or YouTube, and they can interact with it in a live way, they care less about the production part and more about feeling like they're a part of what's actually happening, and they're actually getting to interact with the leaders that are on the screen in front of them.
It's good. I feel like there's a lot of maybe a stripping back of the fluff, right? Like I always talk about the fluff of ministry. There's a lot of things, like you say, Michelle, that, you know, kind of the cherry on top. If we can do it, it's awesome. But this season's really helped us get back to the basics. At least that's the way I kind of see it. And so I love seeing people share Bible devotions with their kids in the morning through live stream or through simple little videos. I mean, really simple stuff that are getting kids into prayer and into reading their Bible every day. And to me, those are the things where we're going to win in this season.
So one of the things that we've actually come back to with a stronger emphasis is personal contact through phone calls. And I know we mentioned that, and I know, Charlie, you just said that, you know, it's hard to do that, you know, make 20 calls and do that. So what we actually did at the beginning of the year, not even knowing this was going to happen, we have I don't like to use the word system, but that's all I know how to say. But basically what's been amplified during this time is I'm calling families every week. I'm talking to kids. I'm doing that. But what we do is I've given some assignments, you know, to our leadership team. And so they're making phone calls, they're making contacts. And then what they've done, say for Rural Rangers or Impact Girls or Kids Life, which is our small group component on Sunday, those teachers are contacting their students just in their class or their group. So we're finding that these personal touches 3 or 4 times, say every 2 weeks, we have had such good feedback from that. And it hasn't been long conversations. It's just, hey, want to check on you. Can I pray with you about something? Just something super easy. So kind of moving away from the non-technology side to going back to something that is old school. I can't tell you the number of parents that have appreciated that, and even talking to those kids, they love to get a phone call, and even handwritten cards, birthday cards. I just, you know, those personal touch things for us, we have realized that that's something that can become even stronger for us here on the local church level.
I definitely think small groups and small group leaders are becoming more vital. And I think the quality of the leader, like you say, I think in this season, what you've built in your ministry is all out on show. Like if you'd spent the last couple of years building a strong small group ministry where you're really valuing those leaders and positioning them to disciple kids, then you would assume that in this season, that's on show right now. Those small group leaders are doing everything they can to reach out. And I think, I think that's definitely something that we should be pushing our leaders to do more.
What happened for us is when this first started, you know, we had to key in on our kids' church online. You know, we kind of had to do things in increments. And our small group ministry on Sunday, we actually had started something a little different, and it had started growing. So actually my small group leaders actually came to me and they said, hey, when are we going to do something online? You know, we're sending cards to our kids, but we want to be able to do something with them online. And so actually next week, and it may be a little late in the game, but next week we're starting our kids' life groups through Zoom. And the way we're doing it is our teachers are actually teaming up. And again, it's not about that structure. They're going to do a short Bible lesson, but they're going to play a game. They're going to, things like David and I talked about, showing their pet and just doing, crafts they've been working on during the house. And so the way we are doing it by grade. So we're doing one for first and second grade at 6:30. We're doing one for third and fourth grade at 7, and then one for fifth grade at 7:30. And, if we need to adjust our times, we'll do that. But to me, it's a good thing when your teachers are asking, when can we do this? They're not waiting, for that instruction. And again, that goes back to that relationship and buy-in too that Dave was talking about.
I actually think this season is perfect, especially for those churches going back early. I've seen a lot of comments online, well, we're not going to do children's ministry for the first month or so because we can't socially distance. And I'm like, break down that ministry that you've got into small groups, providing you've got the space, and relaunch back as a small group. or in some kind of capacity where really you're then just recruiting some people for a short season. And I think small groups is so important. And you'll see it in most major curriculums for children's ministry. I'll say large group and small group components. I mean, it's pretty standard now. I think the issue, Charlie, is that most churches are in survival mode, right, and they're just scrambling. So you're coming off a season where volunteers have had a break. They've had a good amount of time off. There's a lot of people in the church raring to get back. So it's just a case of reaching out and selecting some people and really making the big ask, So
I know one of the conversations I had with my pastor even today was about when we go back with kids ministries. And I shared with him, I said, our leaders on Wednesday, our Royal Rangers Girls Ministries, and even our small groups Sunday morning, they are already connecting. And we want to continue this, of course, obviously, but even with our large group, our kids church, I've talked to all those kids church leaders and said, we're going to go back. When we do go back, we're going to go back in a small group format, because right now these kids just need to connect. They don't need all the bells and whistles that we want to give them. They just want to be with our leaders. They want to be with their friends. And so if we can create this small group atmosphere, I think it's going to be a win for us. Now, we've got enough kids church leaders that we could actually create small groups. We'll just have to figure out the space in our facilities. But it would be great for leaders to just sit down and say, so how are you doing? And then just grab some of the material, the scriptures or something, and say, hey, this is what Jesus says. But make it just natural. Don't make it force fed.
I think we've talked a lot about it. I don't want it to be undervalued, but relationship is key. You've got the time right now to be connecting with those people. And we've talked about how do you do that, your small group leaders and this, that, and the other. You just break it down and make it realistic goals. So our district superintendent is calling all 643 lead pastors that we have over quarantine. He's broken that down and made it an individual goal for every week. So I've been challenged. If he can call 640, I can surely call all my kids pastors, So at the local level, you can surely call all your families. You just break it down and do 5 a day or 2 a day, whatever that looks like for your structure. But relationship right now is so key, because I think we're going to have a couple things to deal with when we go back to brick and mortar. Number one, you're going to have families that have gotten used to watching church in their pajamas, and this is now comfortable, and I don't have to go to a building. But they will if there's relationship and there's people there that they have connected with and they love and they want to be around. But then you're going to have the other people that's the other side of, man, I'm rushing back in there because I'm tired of being home. Those are my people. That's my community. I've got to get there. So if you can bring all of them alongside and do relationship now while you have the time, then when you do go back to brick and mortar, it's even better and even stronger.
For us, or for me, I would say just be true to who you are. There's on the technical side, technology side, there have been so many excellent things that have been done that, in all these kids' church services and things like that. And, it can cause a leader to feel less than or, ill-equipped or, to be able to do some things. So what I want to just say is, be true to who you are. Do what works for your families, for your people, and focus on that. Yeah, there's a lot of great ideas out there, but just because it works for somebody doesn't mean it may necessarily work for you. It might, but don't get away from what has given you those relationships, or has sustained those relationships, like Michelle said. But just be true to who you are and work in that arena.
I think one of the things for us that we're trying to do as a leadership team is we're going to use the 5 love languages to identify with our leaders. Well, at the same time, we are going to recommend that our leaders find the 5 love languages from their kids and be able to reach out to their kids that way. Because some kids, they just need a word of affirmation. Others, they want quality time. And so if we can identify those love languages, with the kids, just like we're doing with our leaders, I think then it allows our leaders a little bit more flexibility, because we all have different learning styles, and you tend to teach in your learning style. But if you identify the love language of kids, now doesn't matter what teaching style you use, you're able to reach and connect with those kids. And so that's going to be something that we're really going to encourage our leaders to implement.
And I would just say the same. I mean, I think the message is pretty clear, but one day when kids grow up and they look back on this season, I do believe they will remember this season as a crazy time. And I think they'll think it wasn't, I learned this specific thing, or they taught me this specific thing. It'll be, wow, that pastor cared for me, or wow, that volunteer who was faithful always reached out and called me. And I think we want to show kids how much we care right now. That's an easy thing that anybody can do today.
There's power in knowing that they're not alone. The kids aren't, that literally the entire world is walking through the same thing and has just walked through the same thing. And so I think reassuring them that this didn't just happen to them and their family, because that's one of the things that can happen when you're stuck inside your house and your world feels like it's fallen apart, your structure's gone. You can feel like it's just me, but then when you get back together and you realize, oh, it happened to you too, and you too, and you too, there's power in those kids realizing that it was all of us, that we were all in it together, and we're all going to come out on the other side of it together. And the one thread that's going to help us do that is Jesus. And so we can trust him even when we're scared. We can find joy even when we're scared. And scary things might happen the rest of our life, but he's brought us through this time, and so he's going to bring us through what's yet to come.
I think, again, this whole relationship thing, we're very blessed where we are. The majority of our volunteers are weekly people, and they're reaching out to their kids and families in some way during the week. They had been doing that even before this started. And so now being able to do that, I think when we do start coming back, because they have that relationship with them, this is why I am such a proponent of consistent, I guess volunteerism is the term, but because when you have the relationship, you build trust. And when you build trust, you earn the right to speak into that child's life, and they feel like they can talk to you. We've had one situation that is just disastrous with a fifth grade boy over the last couple of weeks. I can't even fathom what he's going through right now. But his teacher, I've tried to reach out to the mom a couple of times. She's not responded to me. I'm not sure why. Because I do have a relationship, but his kid's life teacher has reached out to him, and they have responded, and she's been able to pray and to kind of talk them through, and so again, you know, and we don't necessarily have that kind of relationship with every kid, but you know, being able to, for those kids to feel security enough to be able to talk and to share. And we have a lot of them that do. We have some that don't, obviously, but so I just for us, you know, having that consistent volunteerism with them, you know, knowing their kids, I think that, you know, that's one of the keys to it as well.
Yeah. The resource that I want to share with you, I heard from Chris Corbett. She's the children and family kind of professor down at Southeastern. She shared with this with me. It's a trauma competent children's ministry course. It's for leaders to take a course to help us identify the trauma that kids are going through. It's on the INCM.org, the International Network of Children's Ministries, and it's a reasonably priced per person, but it's a course to kind of go through and basically everything that kids have been experiencing during this quarantine time, various levels. It just kind of really helps for the church to kind of equip ourselves to really be able to love and just welcome these kids with whatever trauma that they've gone through, and not just for the quarantine. It could be almost anything. It's not a counseling training, but it's to help us identify what that kids might be going through, some kind of trauma. It just helps out a little bit, but it's a great course. We're going to be taking our leadership team through it, and just wanted to share that with you.
We have compiled a list of resources in North Texas. Some of them we're working with local churches to produce and create for anybody to use, and others it's just free resources that have been thrown out that we've filtered and gathered and provided for our kids pastors on our website. So if you go to northtexas.ag/COVID19, there's a ton of stuff there that is linked that's available. One thing we're working on this week is, and John mentioned it a few minutes ago, for those churches that are going back to brick and mortar this week or next, but don't feel like they can do proper social distancing in their kids ministries, we are creating an activity, a Bible story kind of activity book for kids to do during the adult service. So it'll have a Bible story and some activities for them to work on while they're sitting in service with their parents. And so one of the things we're doing as a district is encouraging our pastors that if they're not going to do kids ministry, to do some kind of resource like that. It's just downloadable and printable. They can put their logo on it, whatever they want. And then we're also encouraging them to allow for their kids pastor to at least do like a 5-minute kids corner or 5-minute kid devo or something inside of the main service that's just targeted for kids if they're not going to open up their kids' rooms. But all of that will be available on northtexas.ag/COVID19.
The Assemblies of God has created a kit that's basically a church relaunch kit. It helps for the adults and their services, for the youth, but there's also a section for the kids. You know, there's a lot of decisions, a lot of changes that have to come for churches that affect so many different areas, and this goes through 5 different topics: volunteers, ministry experience, discipleship environment, safety, and then the digital future. And so really helps you tackle one of those areas, grab one of them, see the resource inside, see the ideas, and start making some changes.
Well, and I believe, leaders, this is the most exciting part of ministry that we have. That even though these are all wise, foundational things, and it's leadership gold that we're talking about, but the reality is that none of it's profound. None of it is something that one person on a mountaintop got it from some sage, or had to go through 7 degrees to get. It's the same thing of ministry. Ephesians 5, the fivefold ministry is called to equip the people to do the good work, of the kingdom. And the fact is that as kids leaders, especially, where the vast majority of our kids leaders, if you're watching it today, the most probable is that you're not paid, that you're working 40 to 60 hours a week, and you only have 3 to 5 hours a week to prepare for this because of the things you're doing. And it's funny how that everything we're talking about when it comes to leadership are the basic things. That how do we love our kids? How are we consistent in communication? How do we find the resources and collaborate now at our fingertips? And then how do we put them into a way that we can manage it? And those are the essences of creating a group. But the reality is that I just want to encourage everyone, whether if you are a full-time person, a district person, or a part-time volunteer, is that the reality is that everyone's called. And every call that we've had here so far, I've been saying the same thing, is that if you are called to the ministry that you're in, that if God wants someone else to minister to your kids and your community, he would have had someone else doing it, and you wouldn't be doing it. So you're doing it. And so you can grow, yes, but be confident in the calling that you have. And I believe as we kind of just learn to what the Lord is speaking to us through this season, then leaders, what will happen is that we'll be better for it, but we can walk in assurance that he has put us here and that he has put other people with us here to make that difference. And so I just want to say thank you again, leaders, for joining us and imparting wisdom for our kids, men leaders here around the country, especially here in Louisiana, and for anyone else getting to use this. And leaders, I just pray for you that you are blessed regardless of the storm or beyond it, because the Lord is with you, and we're here to reach our kids. God bless. See you soon.